one.
So it's always easier to see what it looks like on the other side when you can watch somebody walk through it before you do. Hey guys, I'm Rebecca and this is Davey and we run the Divorce Hub. What we're going to do on this series is read you messages that we've received from clients and people that follow the channel and even friends in our lives who are going through divorce. And we've picked out and screenshotted some of the messages that they've sent us, and we just want to read them and then talk about them, because what we found is people, when they're in the depths of a divorce, share some of the most raw, vulnerable, emotionally charged thoughts. And we've made sure that we are a safe place where people can say whatever they want, so it doesn't come out on their spouse. And so we have some really cool messages. We're going to do one per episode where we just read it and talk about it. Never are we going to share names or situations of the people behind these messages. The point is to share the content so that if you're going through something similar, you'll feel a little bit less alone.
Yeah, we've also, I will say, we've tried to create as many different ways for you to get a hold of us, because one of the things we definitely recognize in this process is that while someone might be searching for divorce help or need help, the other person may not know. And so we've created a bunch of different ways to get a hold of us: text message, email, we can upload some information. One of the ways that is becoming more and more prevalent, and I think we've now had all of the major platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and email for us. A LinkedIn message came through at one point. Any message platform's okay. This might be the safest communication that you have, that you don't want a phone call or a text message, but you can slide into your LinkedIn messages and send a call.
So we're easy to find. Our profiles are public everywhere. I think
send us a message.
Best to reach out to a professional if you have a counselor to work with. And if you don't and you're not there yet, then we're here.
Yeah. All right, so the first message to read here: how have you come to deal with grieving the life you thought you had and the future you were dreaming before divorce? I'm struggling with that so much right now. Before I react, since I read it, I just want to get your take too. What's the first thing that comes out of your mind when you hear that?
Good for you.
Yeah.
It is sad. It is awful. And there's no part of divorce where if you feel good about it, that's a good thing, really. Like, sometimes you're going to feel confident in your decision, but this piece of it that this individual shared is one of the most important, healthy parts of a divorce: to grieve the life you thought you had. And my first thought is I'm cheering for that person, because they're stepping in to the pain of the reality that life you wanted is gone. How about you? What's the first thing you think of?
I think that I zoom out and I will try to remind people that this battle between two forces diametrically opposed, which are your past and your future, that battle never dies. That war never ends. It's the fire that keeps burning, because say the weird things that you'll always wonder what life would have been like had things gone a different direction.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. We talk about that a lot.
Wonder is different than hope. Hope is the word that makes people very insecure, and are you still in love with this person? Wonder is normal, safe, healthy curiosity. And you see it the most at like times when you interact with that person, switch days, things like that. So to this person, I would tell them, hey, it makes sense that you're here. Don't expect this to be a fleeting feeling. This is what you'll go through, is balancing the past and the future and what you thought you had. And you'll go back and you'll question, or my expectations in the beginning realistic? And one of the things that hurts the most, I think, when you're in this process of dealing with past and future, is making peace with the idea that the person that you thought you married never was going to be the idea that you romanticized. Did you fall in love with that person or the idea of that person and what they could be? And oftentimes, people are in love with the idea that was so juvenile and so many years ago. And that couple as a unit or individually hasn't done any work to evolve, change, or adapt to life, kids, job loss, moving, trauma, pain, addiction.
We've talked to a lot of people about that idea. And what he's speaking to here is grieving the life that he thought he was going to have with the person that he thought he was going to be in love with and be his partner forever. But what happens in a divorce is you've come to a head and you've realized, you're not the person I thought you were. or we've grown apart, or the people we are now no longer mesh. And one of the ideas that was relieving to me in the process was I had a mental health professional ask, if you saw this person out at a bar and they asked you on a date, knowing everything that you know about this person and the character that they've played in your life, would you take a date with them? And to be able to answer that question honestly, one way or the other, is really relieving to a lot of people, because if the current version of you would not go on even a date with the current version of the person that you're divorcing, this is one of those times that you're just
Here's
grateful.
your sign. Yeah.
You're grateful for it. And you can be sad that the life you thought you were living that's not where you're headed anymore. That is sad. And I feel that. But also be grateful that you're not going on the date now that isn't appropriate for your life. Am I saying that in a nice enough way? I'm trying to be so careful with how I say that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I think I see this also, this is kind of like a micro process. It's like the major process of divorce and the micro process of grief.
Yeah.
But I think this process, this isn't any sort of official term, but like when this grief thing happens, first there's pain, and the pain hurts. And then after the pain hurts for a while, because we absorb pain for sacrifices of keeping the family together, et cetera, social pressure. Then you start to go, that doesn't feel so good. Step 2, right?
Yeah.
Step 3 is, I need to do something about it. Start to balance the past. And step 4 is you've done something about it. And then what I would also say to this person that they're missing, that they're absolutely missing, whiffing on, is when you're in it, you only think about balancing single versus your marriage. And you have no concept to even see it, that your life on the other side for you and your children might be better. And that's one of the toughest things to try to say to somebody in this point.
Yeah.
But it's true, a lot of times you were such a bad individual and as a couple and bad parent when you were fighting in front of your kids for nothing.
Or up all night fighting to wake up and try to get the kids on the bus the next day, to try to reset yourself while your spouse was gone. So when they came home, you could fight again, and you would hope that they weren't mad after work. But when they came in, you felt how they shut the door, and it just spirals constantly. And so this individual is grieving a life. I think the key is he's grieving the life he thought he had.
Yeah.
And he'd already come around to be like, I didn't actually have the life I thought I had, but I had a vision for it, and it broke somewhere.
I'd also say, too, that while you were describing that kind of routine of pain and suffering that happens in a broken marriage, you are not hiding it from the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only other people, other than your spouse who you're fighting with, that knows you at your soul is your children. And they watch and they listen to everything. And they know when you're fighting and they feel when you're fighting.
They know
even
the tone
if
of
you
voice.
say no words. They feel the energy of your fight. And that's what I would say additionally. You can't say that early when somebody's grieving is, hey, things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. They're like, nah, I just need to deal with what's going on right now. But that is the truth, is that imagine all those fights you don't have to have in the morning.
Yeah.
Or in the evening. Imagine all that pain and suffering and grief and guilt and punishment, self-punishment for any of your transgressions or things that have happened wrong. How much of your professional and personal life is suffering because you're suffering? I just think that's another thing. Come to deal with grieving the life you thought you had. You don't care about the life that you thought you had when your new life is better.
And this is a very different perspective that you have and that I had, because by the time we found each other, you, I think, had grieved for months. And you were like, I'm good. Now this is just hard for me and my boys, but let's move forward. And I was still like very much in my grief, because we were on about the same time schedule. I hadn't addressed my emotions.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where in the process this individual was with the divorce. He might have been divorced already. And a lot of times we say that men process more slowly than women. I was talking to a friend and she was like, I think he just realized he was divorced and it's been a year and a half. And it was like the man, all of a sudden the emotions hit him. I was that same way, because I was not opening Pandora's box of my regret and my sadness and my pain and any of that. I wasn't actually dealing with it, even though I thought I was. And then you get to the other side of it and you're like, okay, we got to open this grief box, and what's in it hurts coming out. But then it was incredible. It's literally like throwing up in the most gross way. It's once you get it out, you're like, okay,
I feel better.
Should have done that a while ago. And that was hard and that was ugly, but thank goodness the grief is out now.
Yeah, what I'd say for what it felt like for me as a man is the acceptance, getting out of the denial was the long, slow burn. And that was where a lot of the pain was. But based on my personality type and some other things and some work that I was doing at the time, once I got there, I wasn't going back. It was black and white. It fall off a cliff type. There's no boom. Oh, there's no maybe.
No, we fell off the cliff.
There's
You jumped
no
off the cliff.
welcome back. There's no, hey, what if we get back together? What if someday my right or wrong, my whole mental state was you moved out. You moved out. And it's game over. Once we leave our home that we had together, and look, sometimes that has to happen, right? I'm not shaming anybody or saying that you shouldn't. Sometimes that might be the best thing is for someone.
We've had a lot of people who've been like, I moved out, and we're like, thank goodness. Somebody had to be strong enough to get out.
In-home separations are so messy and ugly and ugh. But my point is that moving out for me, just from my experience, meant game over.
Yeah.
And so I know that I suddenly moved on right about the time you had come on, but I think that probably gave you some discomfort in our relationship early on because you're like, you can't be this moved on this fast. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it took me a while to get here, and it was climbing up a mountain and then finally hitting the top and going, hey, it's just down from here on the other side.
And I think something important to mention about grieving, anytime you hear a professional talk about like grief and the grief process, they call it a cycle. It's a cycle. And what's unfortunate about a grief cycle for adults and for children that you've got to keep a hold of is it's not a perfect circle like what that chart shows. Grief looks like this.
Yeah.
And
it's
there's
nonlinear. Yeah.
So many times that we look at each other and we're like, that kid's grieving. They just lost their absolute mind over nothing. We're going to have a conversation. Same with us. We'll be like, there'll be times we'll look at the calendar and be like, what the heck happened this day a year ago? Because we really believe a lot in that idea that your body keeps score. There's a whole book on it, but the time of year that stuff starts to happen, your mind remembers that. Oh, the leaves were changing when we had that horrible fight, or the leaves were changing when I found out about that affair, and your body and your mind are like, oh, this time of year is bad for me. And so the grief process is going to show up at a lot of different times in a lot of different ways, and that's okay. Because once you've opened the box, you remember how to open it. And you're like, okay, when I feel that feeling, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to journal. I'm going to go to counseling. And that's an important piece of it.
I think people also, you're trying to make sense of your emotions. And so people fight their grief back. They don't allow themselves to feel it or name it because they think that is some reason that their body or their mind or their heart is tricking them to wanting to go back with their person who they, in their same daily life, they're like, no way. Why am I feeling like I miss this person? Why am I feeling this?
Because that's normal to miss them.
It's normal, and it's grief is non-linear. And sometimes it is exacerbated by, oh, we got to do a switch day or a meetup, or there's your anniversary or something hits. But sometimes it's like sitting on the couch.
This is really
just doesn't
morbid.
Get triggered.
I don't know if this will stay in as we wrap up this episode, but we've said a lot of times, I wonder if it would be easier if this person had actually died than have to figure out how to co-parent with them.
Yeah.
And what it feels like is that you grieve it, they're gone, and then you see them at soccer.
Yeah.
And you grieve it, they're gone, and then you see them at the school performance. And it is heartbreaking because if you were in a marriage where you genuinely loved the person and you tried, it is like constantly in your face. We could be sitting together. This could be us. And you have to realize what you're grieving. And in a lot of cases, you're grieving the fact that what you thought you had wasn't even an option. You were believing in a different reality than the one that was in front of you. Now, whether that's a healthy way to say it, I don't know, but it was helpful to me. And I think it was helpful to a lot of people. Yeah. So grief's a big deal. Give yourself space.
Yeah. It starts with these messages. It starts with a message to us. Again,
reach out.
We've done this more times already than I thought we would. And it's just, but sometimes it starts with finding someone who says, hey, doesn't matter what your story is. I hear you. That makes sense. You're here. And it's hard.
Yep. We're here. Reach out. We say all the time, Rebecca Green, Davey Holt. You can find us on pretty much any social media platform. We have very public profiles. So reach out and send a message and we'll try to help if we can.